The Dallas Cowboys are going to take on the Chicago Bears in the Windy City this Sunday. They're coming off a thrilling win over the New York Football Giants last Sunday. 1-1 on the season, so the Cowboys getting started probably about where most people thought that they would. This is the Blitz on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. I'm Joe Reinagle. He's Jason Minix.
And let's talk about the start for the Dallas Cowboys, now 1-1. Our good friend RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com joining us on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Sure, you're happy with the win, but plenty to bitch about, my friend.
I don't have much to complain about if I'm being totally honest with you guys. In fact, I have felt a little bit rosier than based on my perceptions and based on the comments of the things I've written and said. I'm kind of in the homer camp this week following a thrilling win that one of us took a PJ to. I won't say which one, but I saw all the photos on Instagram.
You know, the private jet experience is incredible.
He did say PJ, right?
Yeah, PJ.
I'm making sure. Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah. Well, hey, based on the way you ended our conversation last week, Joe, I had to be very careful. So.
Very, very true. By the way, we just got the invite for the Green Bay game on said same private jet. Reinagle will go on that. Yeah,
I'll be there for that.
It doesn't suck, I can promise you.
Wow. Well, you'll miss the end of the Ryder Cup, Joe, but I think that's a sacrifice.
I think I'll be okay, RJ. I'll be all right.
They have internet and alcohol on the plane. We'll be fine. Tailgate in the sky. When you think about that game, it was an ugly game, wild game. If you like scoring, it was great. The fourth quarter felt like an arena game, but between the penalties and the secondary, a lot to be angry about if you're a Cowboy fan. A lot of things that a win will cover up for a little while, but the whole lipstick on a pig cliche comes into play big time.
Yeah, I mean, if any team is upset about the penalty situation, I would doubt it would be the Cowboys, based on the way the Giants played. The secondary issue is very real and very fair. My response to this, and not that this is made anything better, but this is in no way their intended group. I mean, we knew that the pendulum swing would be dramatic in the secondary specifically. Trayvon Diggs is not 100%. We obviously didn't forecast that Deron Bland would miss time so soon. Savon Ravel is still not out there. So yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense for them to get work. Now, it doesn't make sense for them to get work to the degree that they did. To make Russell Wilson look like his peak and vintage self. But I'm we're still so early in the season that I'm really anxious to see, if the Cowboys secondary makes Caleb Williams look good, then we can really kind of sound the alarm. If Russell Wilson looks like a pumpkin again against the Chiefs on Sunday night, then we can really, you get what I'm saying? We can start to kind of put the puzzle together. But we are still mining and gathering data. I do think it's lipstick on a pig in some senses. The phrase I like, I steal from my coworker, Brandon Gouton. We all are familiar with a moral win. This is a moral loss, the opposite of a moral win. Because in a moral win, you actually lose, but you feel like you won. This, you actually get the win. So, I mean, it is awesome, but you can take away the lesson as if you had lost the game and still find yourself with a bit of humble pie.
Well, RJ, I found it interesting. Jerry Jones' comments yesterday on 105.3 The Fan, he was talking about Savon Ravel, and it sounds like to me that the guy is close, and that because I think Jerry's words were help is coming, and it's coming from within. It sounds, and I hope so, because I want to see this kid play, but it sounds like he's close to getting back.
Yeah, I mean, it's been about a year since the injury, and so, that would make sense. And Jerry intimated that his return would line up with his return from the NFL list, which would suggest that he'll be back after you guys fly home from the Green Bay game on Sunday Night Football. But even then, right, like even if he is available at the earliest possible time, and I don't mean to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, your entire hope at this point rests on a third-round rookie who missed most of last year. I mean, it is a very difficult ask. And so I understand having confidence. I understand having belief in the dudes on the roster, with regard to the players within, to use Jerry's parlance. But you also, I mean, we know that they're not, bothered by seeking outside help. Jadeveon Clowney is proof of that. So maybe it takes letting Caleb Williams look functional to really make you, pick up the phone and call somebody else. But yeah, Stephon Gilmore is the name that makes the most sense, and for a lot of reasons.
And it seems to be the name that every time it's brought up, everybody with the last name Jones that speaks for the Cowboys just poo-poos it immediately, which is mind-boggling to me as we visit with RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com. You mentioned a couple of times Caleb Williams and how good he might look against the Dallas defense. Russell Wilson seems to have a game like that randomly every year, and then he turns into what he has been recently. I don't know. Cowboys defense has done well stopping the run over the first two games. It's one thing to stop a Cam Scatterboo, who you know well because you follow Arizona State as closely, forks up. But they also held Saquon Barkley in check. Maybe that run defense has improved enough. Pass defense is there. But I look at the first 2 weeks, the offensive player of the week in the NFC has gone to the quarterback that played against Chicago. Dak Prescott is up next, and he's been playing great football.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And to your Russell point quickly, I always like to, after every Cowboys game, just see what I observe and go look for trends or historical notes or things that, haven't happened in a long time. And I was looking through Russell Wilson's career. His last 400-yard game was last year, right? So, to that point, it did feel like it had been forever, but it really kind of hadn't been. Your secondary should be good, and in a perfect world, your entire defense would be great. But again, to your point, as long as Dak Prescott is playing the way he is, anything is possible. And I would offer that by extension, as long as George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb literally exist, you can do anything. As long as you can score from midfield because of Brandon Aubrey, you can do anything. And did they catch a break in this game? Absolutely, with the Russell Wilson arm hunt, obviously, to Donovan Wilson. And that's not going to happen, right? That's why it is a moral loss. You have to realize that you cannot fly this close to the sun and win on a consistent basis in the NFL. But if you have the main thing, and I would challenge someone to find a quarterback outside of Josh Allen and maybe definitely Lamar Jackson. Those two, who's playing better than Dak Prescott through 2 weeks of the season, you simply can't. Dak is playing with a level of control that we saw over the second half of 2023 where he almost won MVP.
Well, I tell you, I'm not worried about the offense. Dak has been playing well. You mentioned the two wide receivers. Jake Ferguson had a good game against the Giants. And then you've got Javonte Williams running the football very well. The offense doesn't concern me at all. They're going to put up some points. The concern is, even against a team like the Chicago Bears, is how many are you going to allow? Because eventually you have to figure Ben Johnson is too good not to have that offense clicking at some point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that necessarily happens this week until maybe Ben Johnson in Chicago or somebody else's problem. But to your point, I mean, you guys are going to have a great time on the ride to Arlington next week. But then when Jordan Love and the Packers trot out, I mean, it could take a turn, right? Like, you are going to play some elite offenses. You play Kansas City on Thanksgiving. We assume by then they'll have figured things out. Like, you're not going to play teams as moribund as the Bears on a weekly basis. And so that's where you have to hope that maybe Trayvon does get fully healthy. Deron Bland gets back and stays healthy. Savon Ravel shows up and joins the crew. You fully adjust. But like, the other thing is, literally a month ago, Micah Parsons was on the team. And I know that we're talking about, the secondary and whatnot, but they are still quite literally building the plane as they are flying and adjusting to this massive change. And so that comes with some warts, that comes with some bumps in the road. And they're fortunate that they were able to overcome one of those or a sequence of those on Sunday against the Giants. But you're right. At a certain point, you've got to nip that in the bud, or you're going to be putting way too much on Dak Prescott's shoulders, as they're kind of known to do.
RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com here on the Blitz. RJ, I know you get deep into the weeds on different things there at Blogging the Boys, and whether it's you or somebody else on the staff there. I'm curious, when you look at the effectiveness of Javonte Williams and him running and Dak's passing, and it's got to be more than just the addition of George Pickens. Clayton Adams is an offensive line guru, now the offensive coordinator. Offensive line looks phenomenal. Now, Cooper Beebe is going to be out a while. Brock Hoffman is in at starting center. But in all the different analytical stuff that you guys do there at BTB, how much are you crediting improved play along that offensive line for what we're seeing from the Cowboys' offensive output?
So there's an old adage that you have to run the ball to set up the pass. You got to establish the run for things like play action to work. And I in no way mean to discredit or not give credit to Clayton Adams or the offensive line or Javonte Williams himself. But I do think if you are looking for the catalyst, it is George Pickens, because in today's modern NFL, the passing game is what sets up the run. And so the existence, the presence, the threat of George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb has really kind of opened things up for someone like Javonte Williams to capitalize on those opportunities. You still have to do that. The offensive line still has to withstand a ferocious front seven like they did on Sunday against the Giants. They lost a couple of times, but I mean, everything does ultimately work in harmony, but I think that's the direction that things are ultimately kind of operating from is that George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are clearing everything out. And think about, like, CeeDee Lamb has had 2 okay games, and Jake Ferguson, I know, Joe, I agree with you, he had a solid game, but he still had some drops. Like, they're both having some drop issues and not the dependable versions of themselves we've seen over the past. And this offense is still one that we all collectively trust. The quarterback is still playing out of his mind. And that's because of what George Pickens has done and sort of the catalytic nature for. Now, again, I don't want to take away from what Javonte is accomplishing individually. I do also think that we are maybe not used to this. He has 151 rushing yards for the first 2 games, which is not a lot. Like, I mean, it's substantial, but like, nobody call grandma or anything. Like, it's not the biggest deal in the world. But that being said, the last time a Cowboys running back had at least 150 rushing yards through just the first 2 games of the season was 2020. I think as we get further and further and further from this time, we are really going to, see just how much the Cowboys coped into believing that Zeke Elliott was this prominent player from just about the moment after they gave him that extension to when they're finally willing to move on, which was just this past offseason. And so Javonte is kind of a serviceable player who is good enough to capitalize on the moments that are created for him. And I think we're seeing all the dominoes fall in line after that.
Well, I tell you, I see it a different way when you're talking about Williams. I think the Cowboys finally have a running back that they can depend on and hand the football to. And not only that, then you got a Miles Sanders to back him up as a change of pace. And maybe someday we'll see Jaden Blue. I think the Cowboys running game is better than you're giving them credit for, RJ. I really do. And I think that helps Dak Prescott. And it helps the entire offense. I just think Williams is going to get better. If he stays healthy, he's going to get better as the season rolls on.
I in no way meant to imply otherwise. My only sort of specific point is that I think the first domino falling has to do with the passing game. You're right. The running game is really solid and is performing really well. And at the end of the day, there's still execution that has to happen. Even if you are Josh Allen and your passing game is super potent. But I think that's where defensive coordinators start, right? Like, that's the first conversation. How do we stop this Cowboys offense? It begins with the passing game. And because you're devoting so much attention, so many resources, so many players, so many bodies, so much physical space on the field, that's what opens things up. Now, again, you're right. Javonte Williams, we're not talking about he's just had like 100 3-yard runs. He's ripping off big runs. Like, he's ripping off sizable runs. He's hurdling dudes. He's running through contact. He has the 5th highest rush EPA of all running backs in the NFL at this moment in time. And he has significantly more carries than anybody else, which is indicative of the fact that every time he touches the football, which is often very good things are happening and of his own accord. But I do think it is all something that is harmonious because the passing game exists in a very different way because of George Pickens' presence.
And I think everybody here is right for a variety of reasons, because defenses are going to have to start respecting the threat of the run game, which maybe they didn't under Rico, which could certainly help the pass game. And again, with Pickens, hasn't quite yet had the impact as far as catches, but he's drawn a couple of DPIs. He's drawn some coverage. CD, like you said, I mean, he's playing well, but the drops, pedestrian by his standard. But I come back to the throws that Dak Prescott is making, the decisions Dak is making. He's being very aggressive. There was a time after the year where he threw all the interceptions, it seemed like he was hesitating and not willing to throw it into a tight window. Those days are over. I mean, that guy's willing to throw it through a porthole right now because he's got confidence in his arm and the receiver to make the catch.
I think that and I'm not the first or 5,000th person to say this, but we're seeing Dak have a mental understanding of the game that Tony Romo reached in 2014. Now, the great tragedy is by that point, Romo's body had begun to betray him, and he simply couldn't withstand what playing quarterback in the NFL requires. I think beyond that, not that Romo didn't play quarterback for the Cowboys in a polarizing era or a social media era. I also think that Dak has been really liberated by just the toxicity surrounding the Cowboys, because to your point, Jason, he's like, well, I'm going to thread this needle, and like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, I'm going to get picked up and they're going to say I suck. Like, I'm going to lead every national talk show tomorrow and everyone's going to say I'm trash. Like, you know, what's the worst that could possibly happen to me at this point in time? Like, he has seen and stared down everything at this point. So I guess, like, to me, he plays like someone who doesn't have time for it anymore. You know, he doesn't have time for the BS. It's a matter of like, hey, this is what I feel like doing. This is what's in the best interest of the team. I completely agree. There's a disposition of like badass attitude. My favorite throw that he made on Sunday to this collective point was the Jake Ferguson conversion near the end of regulation to put them in the massive territory for Brandon Aubrey. That throw was a piss missile, and it was fired off before Jake Ferguson had even turned around. I mean, like, think about that. It is truly like, they're down by 3. There are very few seconds left. You're trying to pull off a 60-yard field goal in general, and Dak's throwing this thing with all the conviction in the world. You can only do something like that if you have this incredible sense of inner peace. If I have to make a sports comparison, it feels very similar to Scotty Scheffler. I know that that's obviously said a lot, that his inner peace obviously comes from his faith and his security and his family and whatnot. But Dak is playing like, I don't know what the specific attribution is, but he's playing with that same level of peace and confidence in himself.
Well, I agree with that, confidence in himself, but I think he's confident in his receivers as well. You just mentioned he throws that football where Jake Ferguson is supposed to be, and Jake Ferguson was there. And I think he knows that Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson, name a guy, is going to be there, and he's throwing the ball where it needs to be instead of, I don't know, maybe waiting for guys to break free. He's throwing it to the spot, and his receivers are not letting him down up to this point anyway.
Yeah, and so I feel like, again, he's probably – Dak's played football and quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys a number of ways to this point, right? Like, he's done the – you know, the team player guy. He's done the trust the playbook, trust the scheme. And I think he's finally married all of those qualities. And I mean, he's the oldest player on the team. He's the most veteran, the most, you know, tenured player. And I think, I mean, he's the New York Giants father, right? Like, he has, you know, done all of this to the point that it's a matter of like, all right, I agree with you, Joe. I'm going to trust that Jake Ferguson's going to be there, but I'm not going to worry about whether he's not or whether he's tipped up in the air and if it's picked off, because again, I've already experienced everything. Like, and I think that's where, like, there's some serious power in. I'm not saying the Cowboys galaxy brained us all and were toxic last year on purpose to liberate everyone. But last year was so specifically disastrous for this team that I do wonder if that, you know, individually freed Dak Prescott, freed everybody else. Because again, like, how much worse could it possibly get? The stadium's going to fall down on us like it did on Monday Night Football last year when the Texans were in town. Like, everything bad that could possibly ever happen to this team has. And so they can play without fear of tomorrow.
Going to be very interesting. Before we let you go, your thoughts on Clowney wearing number 42?
Disgusting. I mean, more disgusting than sticking your hands in someone's Captain Crunch and trying to pawn it off as if that didn't happen. I mean, it is one of the grossest things that has ever happened. I hope it's temporary. I'm not an old man yells at cloud in any kind of way, but I hate this world that we live in where people and players can wear all these stupid numbers and all these players down the roster claim the kind of cool ones. Number 1 is the most disproportionate number in the NFL right now. Because every dude who joins the team when it's available, he's some journeyman, he takes it. And then you have, like, you know, a badass first-round wide receiver who's got to go wear like 87 because everybody got to all the good ones first. So this is dumb. Let Clowney wear anything else. 42 is gross. Unless you're talking baseball, then it's obviously.
I got one more question for you, RJ, and I mean this in all sincerity. Why are the Cowboys a 1-point favorite or a pick 'em in this game against the Bears? Because every Cowboy fan that I look at said that this is a cakewalk. Shereen Williams said it yesterday. This is a cakewalk. This should be no problem.
I certainly do not disagree with Mother Football. I think I can't believe how much of a tizzy people are in over this. They're on the road. Like, they've already eaten into the standard 3-point home field advantage. Like, I feel like that's paying the Cowboys respect, and that's representative of Vegas believing that they're going to win on Sunday. And so it's very, you have to be like a baller of a team or have a strong reputation to be a favorite on the road. The Chiefs are 5-point favorites this week on the road against the Giants, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, do we think the Bears stink? Are the Cowboys looking kind of good? Yeah, but I think that 1.5 points on the road, even as an underdog, is a show of respect. It's just where the game is being played, unfortunately.
It's going to be interesting. RJ Ochoa with a very clever Tim Spence reference. Mic drop on that. Boy, you realize, and
it makes me nauseous just thinking about it.
I mean, you guys don't understand the insult there if you don't remember the Tim Spence days.
I've never seen anyone as mad at any human being as I saw Joe that particular morning.
Well, I'm just fortunate I came around the corner and saw that, RJ, or I would have eaten that hand in my said cereal. So.
RJ Ochoa.
I don't even eat cereal who eats cereal like that in general? Even if it's just
I do.
Bloggingtheboys.com.
I do.
That was gross. Thanks for the flashback. That was wonderful. RJ, appreciate you. RJ Ochoa on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond. Online, buyersbarricades.com.